Hello and welcome to another Perusia podcast. This is a special podcast. It's an audio-only podcast, and I'm sitting with the author of a brand new book that's just been released on our website now called The Trilogy, the epic of Louis IX, the Saga of Brother Bonaventure, the Exile of Chancellor John Gerson. It is The Trilogy. It is now available on perusiamedia.com, and the author is Godfrey Junio, and he joins me in Sydney, Australia. Hello, Godfrey, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Charbel, I'm really happy to be here with Perusia Media, and I've got a really exciting new book, The Trilogy. Three fantastic adventures.
Yeah, congratulations. I talking with you off air, I understand this has been 30 years in the making. This is a big project, and we're talking about three separate stories, but also they flow one to another, and I want to let the audience learn about this. Congratulations to get to this point. When did this project start for you, Richard?
Well, it's a great piece of storytelling. We're doing it in epic poetry. It's a rousing, like a sword and sorcery story, but it's of a real story, but written in a fictional style. Very exciting about two saints and a saintly person. The other person, he was a saint. He was the famous John Gerson, University Chancellor of Paris. And I think he didn't become a saint because he was a little bit too political, but I think sometimes that's accused of faithful Catholics, when they stand up for the church's rights, or in his case, the University of Paris rights to talk the truth fairly and uncontroversially. Enemies of the church will accuse them of being political.
Yeah, you're talking about Chancellor John Gerson.
Yes, that's the third
one in the trilogy.
Yeah. It's a wonderful story because St. Louis lived 800 years ago in the height of what we call the golden age of faith, when things are really flourishing. And it's a really challenge of storytelling. As you asked, Charbel, it was actually written 1991. And it took me 2 years to come to the second story. And then I left it, and then it wouldn't die. And after 25 years, I wrote the third set of stories. And, God bless. I thought this has merit to go beyond family and friends and come out as a rousing story to add to our network of, adventure stories.
Yes.
I call it an adventure story because St. Louis, he was a crusader. He was a patron of Notre Dame, which I notice is now being rebuilt, and Santa Chapelle, which is his private chapel, Yes. And I remember visiting Paris back 20 years ago. And it was so wonderful to visit Paris and see that same Santa Chapelle that was the private chapel of St. Louis,
wow,
very close to Notre Dame, which is just reopened.
Yes.
After being burnt, the roof,
That.
Yeah.
So 800 years ago, we're talking about the
1260s. Yeah. Well, he actually was brought up by his mother because he was just a teenager when his father died. So his mother was a Spanish princess, and she looked after the kingdom till he got older, and he was so pious. He didn't think about getting married, and his mother had to say, "Oh, time to get married, son." And he got married. It's good because he, had someone to carry on the dynasty and do things while he was thinking of the poor persecuted Christians that needed help to protect the pilgrims who were traveling through the Holy Land.
Wow, yes, we'll never forget the difficult times at that point.
Yes.
So we are talking about, these are real, or at least these are three characters that really existed in history.
Yes.
you then take these stories, you build this sort of adventure story on top, but it's written in a poetic way. So I've noticed the way you've written it, it's basically long form poetry.
Yes.
But very fast paced, with a lot of spiritual meaning throughout it. So you're talking about, for the Catholic who reads this, will pick up very quickly a lot of the Catholic teachings in it, a lot of the spiritual truths in it. But then for anyone who's not even Catholic, just to learn for an entertainment purposes, it's also something for them as well. So when you first started, what was, I guess, your vision or purpose for writing that first story on Louis the Ninth?
Well, Charbel, for you and your listeners, it was really written personally. That's what poetry is all about. The poet wants to tell a story of, some flowers he saw in the field or the waves falling on the ocean. In my case, it was a matter of looking at, thinking, this modern world needs a champion, like we had in St. Louis. And then it just sort of comes out from the desire to tell a story. And it's a really exciting thing because we're elevating it to the spiritual level, that you're seeing that even he lived 800 years ago, his struggles are essentially the same as what we are living through of, sorting out priorities in life, working through married life with his mother and his queen, his wife, and having to budget things and go through. Just that he had a few more zeros than the most of us. And then this is where St. Louis, he wasn't just one person. He was pinnacle of a whole civilization. There was building cathedrals and working arts and statues and beautiful things that you can admire. And this is what it is about culture and all that. And from that, arose the pinnacle of all the universities was the University of Paris, called in later years the Sorbonne. The Sorbonne is a nickname for University of Paris. So those were when those times, actually, there was Bologna and other famous universities that were equally as good in those days. But it's really under St. Louis, with the royal patronage and attraction of St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Bonaventure, that Paris went ahead. It was, like these guys, to their own contemporaries, they weren't considered saints. They had their share of fights, like one of the funny things, you'd think the Dominicans would love the Franciscans. So it wasn't like that in those days, and the secular parish priests would love the Dominicans. No, it was different. Like you'd say, this is my part of the church. I'm a Dominican. You guys are Franciscans. And all the seculars say, who are these new upstarts coming preaching poverty and reform, aren't we good enough Catholics? And this is really funny, and nowadays you feel the same when you hear about Saint Jose Maria Escriva and Opus Dei. You say, aren't they Catholics too? Or whatever. I mean, all this funny sort of stuff. It's not new. This is the rivalries, sometimes silly ones within the church. They were also, in the times of St. Louis and St. Bonaventure, and St. Thomas Aquinas. And the funny thing is, two of the greatest. This is the second word. It's about the story of Brother Bonaventure. And how, the followers of Brother Bonaventure and St. Thomas Aquinas were equally prominent to raise new understandings of theology and funny things like Arab teachings and corrupted Aristotles and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, nowadays it's all settled theology, but it was really adventurous in those days. And then, people were saying, Bonaventure, his spirituality is more strong and his theology is better than Aquinas. And then other people would say Aquinas is better. And then the people would say, Peter Lombard is better than these two new upstarts, the senators of Peter Lombard. I mean, these were the basic of university courses in those days, and this is where universities really started. And then you got this funny story where to keep the peace in the kingdom, St. Louis has to adjudicate between Brother Bonaventure and St. Louis and satisfy and Aquinas and satisfy everyone. See, according to this work, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek. It says that actually St. Louis was wiser than Solomon. And I mean, if you think that contradicts the Bible, no, it doesn't contradict the Bible, because he was wiser in regnal wisdom, whereas Solomon was wiser in general wisdom. Okay. And then why I say that is because when Solomon judged, he halved the baby and was going to kill the baby. But St. Louis, he was able to enter this dispute and satisfy everyone. So the work is really funny because it says, part 1 says, Aquinas is the greatest theologian. Part 2 says they're both equal theologians. And part 3, John Gerson's historical words, he says, actually, if you look at it, St. Bonaventure is a greater theologian because he teaches us to love God more. But the other people say, Aquinas teaches us to know God more. What's better, to know God or to love God? What's better, to be an angel or a seraph? I mean, it's very, very wonderful to think about these, nice differences of opinion. Well, you could say maybe, in the end, so from John Gerson, we go on to the story of John Gerson, which is the other part of the trilogy. So they're all like that. It's an adventure story for people to rouse it. Like I've seen plenty of adventure stories about Hannibal and, that big champion teaching Rome a lesson, And it's the same style. You're talking about real characters, but you liven it up with, historical fiction on how the author imagines it would be if they were living in front of you and acting out their life. And this is the style this book is. It doesn't claim to be history, but it's probably more accurate history than most of these stupid historians nowadays,
Changing history.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It doesn't claim to be history, but I notice it's real characters with comparisons of what happened, but then through your eyes, I love how, it is an epic story with adventure, but also I love the truths and the different style that you're using. So can I give people a taste here? Just the way you set the stage, just the very opening, the Sword of Louis IX, a 20th century epic by Godfrey Junio. And I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs just to sort of whet the appetite. And then later on, I want to skip to some other areas in the story. But here's how it starts. Hear the tale of a mighty sword, one that belongs to a mighty lord. What he did, I know not what, except that it swung in a battle hot. Left and right he swung in Louis's hand, bringing life and death for many a man. Double-edged he was for friend and foe, in perfect balance to swing to and fro. Lowered to the left he made foes undone. The sight made Saracens shake and run. fearful life ending with good deeds undone, shameful truth that cannot but stun. And it continues and continues. But you're setting the stage, and it continues right through pages of it, following this rhythmic rhyming that I love. I love how you've done it, and you're covering so much, and it keeps you at the edge of your seat. You sort of want to know what's happening next.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end there. You've got at the bottom of each page, there's actual further references and commentary on. You're sort of expanding on what you're reading. So can you tell us a bit about, I guess, the style and the layout of this book and what people can expect when they read it?
This is a work over 30 years. And the priority is to enjoy the verses and, like listen to a good story. In the days before television, you can imagine the minstrel with his guitar or whatever they call them, those guitars in those days, that he's saying a story over the fireplace for 2 hours. It had to be a long story to, spin it out, and that it'd be really nice. But this is, really written in using the best of modern styles. And at this stage, I'd like to acknowledge two great Australians, for our local faith, Sister Moore Woodbury and Mr. Ruben F. Scarf of the Ruben F. Scarf Foundation. They were real good identities in the 1980s. When I started this work, they had a seminal influence over this work. Ruben F. Scarf, he was famous for giving out free cassettes. That'd be yellow colored. That was the brand mark. Yeah, yellow covered cassette tapes, and he'd have also some books. And I wonder what happened to all those published works that Ruben F. Scarf did, but he had a great influence on my life as well, and so did Sister Moore, and in a very real sense, because she actually affected the work here in perfecting my poetic style and written and sound balance. So for those who are really poetry aficionados and really strict on English, well, the first two parts are not perfect English. They rhyme and they sort of rousing and adventure style. But as far as sound balance, it was part of that journey of building a literary style. And Sister Moore, when I showed her work one, and I was basically 75% through work 2 of St. Louis, and about to finish and thinking of doing work 3, which is the first part of the trilogy. She picked it up straight away and was very kind to give me coaching hints and perfect our style. I mean, that's old Sister Moore Woodbury at Lewisham back in the 1980s, and so many of us remember her apostolate and those of the Marist fathers at Churchill and all that.
She would be related to Dr. Austin Woodbury.
Yes. Yeah. So being Catholic doesn't just mean going to church. You got to say your rosary, your prayers before meals, and and have some good books and good songs and stories. So this is all part of that outflowing of faith into the world. So it's not, although it's full of this, it's not specifically to be anything except a good story. It's a story that's written about saints, and one who's not a saint, and it's not directly pushing anything. It's just about telling a good story, and an adventure story.
You do touch on different themes, and it does get the reader to think about things, which does affect it. So it's not just a story, I guess, for entertainment purposes. I feel that as you're reading this, it's also getting you to think a little bit as well. I want to refer people to page 32 and 33. And you've written here. It's almost like you've got these mathematical equations here, and you're comparing, I guess, what Satan is saying and doing, and then you're using his sort of techniques and you're putting them in a mathematical equation. What's going on there? Can you explain what's going on? 32 and 33.
Okay, this is really interesting bit because not everyone will get it, but you read the words and it has a certain meaning, and you've got to be very careful with Satan. With Satan says a few words in this one, and then the angels say a few words in reply to Satan, and it's every one of Satan's words is telling a lie, but when you decipher it through mathematical symbols and see what the words mean, it actually turns into an equation, and the equation proves that Satan's words are lies. And the same way that when they pray to get rid of Satan, the words prove that those words are true, So it goes through like that, and then there's one funny thing is, like, let me go through this verse on top of page 33. When the calculation is done, minus m is only puny 1, confusing plus and minus 1, creating 0 from the minus 1. And that's a really funny story about what you learn in maths in year 10 in New South Wales. Is the square root of m equals m squared is the mathematical formulation of that. And we all know, if sorry for those under grade 6, you might not understand this. So therefore, if square root of m is m squared, what's m? M is plus and minus 1. Sorry, I misquoted myself. M is plus or minus 1. But that's not the same as plus 1 plus minus 1. Plus or minus 1 means you got options.
Yeah.
If you add 1 plus minus 1, it's 0.
Yes.
So is plus 1 or minus 1 is not the same as plus 1 or minus 1. This is the power of language.
Yes.
If you miss a word, it changes the meaning totally.
Yes.
And so it's just a joke.
Designed to be confusing.
It's designed to be both confusing and humorous.
Yes.
Because we're making fun of Satan, because Satan is saying something that looks logical. But when you break it down, his logic, it's actually the opposite.
Yes.
So there's this thing. Deceitful red in white is dead. In red and white, see pink instead. When red and pink means white, every mind will feel my spite. That's Satan's words. So when you turn it into mathematics, you say, we turn it into mathematics. Deceitful red in white is dead. In mathematics, it means white divided by deceit caused by reds equals death.
Okay.
In red and white, see pink instead. That has a meaning. It means there's a white shirt that's reddened by blood, and Satan say, think of it as pink.
Yeah.
That bloody shirt, that white shirt filled with blood. Imagine that as pink. But you decipher Satan's words, it says, red and white is the same as pink. No. A nice pink color is not the same as a white shirt full of blood.
No, that's right.
So this is the way, some of this, inside joke. Let's say it's an inside joke in some of it.
You've got here in this whole section on madness that subtracts as it adds.
Yes.
And then at the end of that grouping, you got adding sanity by subtracting madness, and then you've got then saints speaking.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. So this is now coming towards. You even quote George Orwell, 1984, which touches on this, and that's what I think of when just hearing you now, is when some people say, 2 plus 2 in reality equals 4, but they are now saying it equals 5.
Yeah.
So we are now distorting reality, distorting truth, and Satan as a deceiver seems to be doing that in today's culture, and we're seeing that, and so that's what it's reminding me of at the moment.
So a lot of this is tongue-in-cheek on modern, and when you read it, it makes you laugh and funny because it's not meant to be totally serious. Because when you read it, it's a good story to read, and like the introduction to The Glorious Sword of St. Louis is the epic is a genre that is out of fashion in certain literary circles who are uncomfortable with the ideas of angels. Page 25. Is making fun of modern scholars who don't like the ideas of angels. It's not these scholars that don't believe that angels exist.
Yes.
But what's their problem? They don't like to be angelic. They don't like to be morally truthful to the needs. That's their problem. It's not that they don't think angels don't exist. They don't want us to be angelic.
Interesting.
So this work is full of little things like that poke fun back at the modern world. And a little bit, I'd like to pay homage to Scott and Kimberly Hahn. I borrowed a lot of stuff from them in part of this work, especially on Saint Bonaventure, about understanding biblical interpretation. So there is a serious side to it, but it's written in a funny style. And the current work brings together work of 30 years ago, as interpreted after 25 years, with understanding of the underlying meanings, as in the meaning of milk and honey. If you read the work, I think this is a unique interpretation. Even today, if you check on the internet, most people interpret the biblical saying of God or Moses that I will lead you into a land filled with milk and honey in a worldly sense. Whereas Scott Hahn, and then he was very new in those days to a really new story about my road to Rome. And Scott Hahn in those days in 1993, which was when this was written, and after 25 years, we decided to add notes and publish it. Like, what does milk and honey mean? Milk, we got to understand the Bible in a spiritual sense. Milk is nourishment for the body. Mm-hmm. God is talking about nourishment for the soul, which is knowledge, led by St. Thomas Aquinas, who's the best theologian for knowledge. And honey is sweetness of life. The best Christians are joyful Christians. They're not, soulful, unhappy. They're just happy to see the stars in the sky at night and drink the cold water and see the sun and feel that goodness of just living and singing. Yes. We're talking about joyful Christianity, and that's St. Bonaventure. That Franciscan way of life of Lady Poverty, and that's the honey of life, And, Saint Bonaventure teaches us happiness through Christian life. So this is the underlying message of Milk and Honey, using St. Bernard's style of interpretation as modernized with Scott Hahn, and this subject actually starts off treating this as a funny part of the story, as we need milk and honey in our life, and St. Thomas Aquinas and Bonaventure are very good for educating our minds and hearts, and that's our spiritual milk and honey, and it's God's fulfillment of leading us to a land of milk and honey. Not to make us rich in this world, but to give us happiness and fulfillment by being well educated and, good pillars of the community. And it starts off like that in the medieval style, but after 25 years, we follow the modern scholarship as typified by Scott Hahn to add that sort of explanatory notes to what is a basic story. So this work, as published, has a lot of explanatory notes that were not there in the original.
Yeah, they're very handy, actually. I noticed page 63 has this whole explanation of Exodus 3:17. And so I've noticed that the style of the second story now, moving on to the saga of Brother Bonaventure, it is a different layout than the first and the way things rhyme. So you've got different scenes, so you can almost have this acted out as a play, and different characters.
This is the contribution of Sister Moore, and my personal discovery of enjoying writing as a personal fulfillment, and friends and family found it interesting. So in the end, after 30 years, here it is, published, because it's written to be a happiness story, adventure story, sword and sorcery, but baptized, baptized. So we're just, I just like it says on the back cover, may large and little flowers in the garden of the Lord Jesus receive the same joy that the scribe had in putting the Spirit within his heart on paper. And, you get a sense of achievement to publish this after 30 years, that, it had value that didn't disappear after 30 years. And that you made friends and family, happy, and, they laugh. It's modern humor, and sorry for other countries, it's a bit of Australian humor, a bit of Australian humor. So some bits are full of Australianisms, but we Australians will understand.
Yeah, very good. I love it. Yeah. In summing up, at the end, the three works are in turn subdivided into three little parts. Each little part was a labor of love for a particular feast day, according to the liturgical calendar. That's a nice little touch there for people to notice. And as is said within, thankfully the taste for the epic and the thought of Augustine and Chrysostom has this timeless appeal that flourishes wherever Christian heroism exists. You are now recommended to the epic, the saga, and the exile story within, being three wonderful tales from the golden age of faith. And you got beautiful imagery. Hagia Sophia, the icon of Theotokos, beautiful. Throughout it, there's so many imageries of Fatima and St. Thomas Aquinas and all the different saints, St. Joan of Arc. And it sort of paints the picture and puts you in the scene of the era of the time. So I guess it's taking you back and reliving, I guess, what it's like there with, as you say, modern humor. So we have to rediscover this, don't we, today? We're so used to just very fast-paced, entertaining, flashy videos and YouTube and, movies, cinemas. But the substance of these stories, some of them are just not there. It's just all noise and effects. This has a lot of substance in the sense that you're you really are touching into some deep truths that gets you to really think.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the value of this.
Thanks, Charbel. That really is the difference. It adds to a solid foundation. It's outflowing to the sea, what it was like, as if St. Louis or Aquinas was in front of you, and you just imagine them arguing in front of you. Like parts of it are written as a play. Yeah. They could be straight out, go to the Genesian Theatre in York Street and be put as a 1 hour play. And that's your adventure story straight away.
We've got to rediscover that too, don't we? And musicals and all these.
It's all just part of enjoying life. We're not sad Christians.
No, that's
and thanks God and thanks Our Lady and thank you, Charbel.
Absolutely. Well, it's available now, available on our website now, parousiamedia.com. People can order a copy today, and we'll put the links in the description below. Just one final thought, Godfrey. Is this for everyone? Who would you recommend pick this up, and from what age group? What would be the target audience?
I think the people who would enjoy it the best are young teenagers.
Okay.
It is an adventure story. It's let's say, sword and sorcery baptized. Not on rough barbarians like Conan the Barbarian or whatever. This Louis the civilized king, Louis the crusader king. Just really found that it's written as that sort of rousing to be sung, over a campfire or something,
And that's very plain.
I'll just give you one final warning: is when you read it, it can have a different meaning to when you listen to it, because it's written that way. It has, how sometimes words can have two meanings.
Yes.
So some of it is deliberate. It's like to make you, if you're half asleep listening to it over a campfire, it'll mean something different. I like to step on Satan's head, and make fun of him. Let's not be terrified of him with all these horror stories and stuff. Let's enjoy a good Christian story, and that's what this is all about.
Very nice. Thank you. Very well said. Well, thank you for joining us today in Sydney in our Parousia studios, and wishing you all the best. May just remind people and bring back good, clean, wholesome entertainment in families today. That's a trilogy now available at parousiamedia.com. There are 3 stories: the Epic of St. Louis IX, the Saga of Brother Bonaventure, the Exile of Chancellor John Gerson, now out in 1 volume at parousiamedia.com. Thanks again. Thank you again, Godfrey. God bless you. Praying for you. Thanks everyone for listening. That's a special Parousia podcast available on all podcasting platforms on the audio, and we'll have this on all the other platforms. Please subscribe and share this among your family and friends. Until next time, God bless.